A statement coming from her doctor saying that Secretary Clinton was diagnosed with pneumonia. That is what is new at this hour. It's a 6:05 p.m. Eastern time frame. We're also hearing at this hour that there could be an adjustment in her travel schedule coming tomorrow. Original scheduling was to get to California. That's under serious reconsideration, we're hearing, per a senior aide. But again, the pneumonia, we're hearing that from her doctor, and then the development of the change in a travel schedule. I want to bring in now Dr. Devi Nampiaparampil. She is a physician and an associate professor at NYU School of Medicine. Dr. Devi, so what we learned in the last hour is this diagnosis of pneumonia. Many things to consider here. We learned about it today, yet the doctor saw her on Friday. The immediate question is, how can one function if they are diagnosed with pneumonia, and how severe might it be?
Well, pneumonia by itself doesn't necessarily need to be dangerous, but it has to be taken seriously. So it's possible that she saw the doctor on Friday, that they started the antibiotics to treat it, in which case she might be getting better, but that they could only make the formal diagnosis on Sunday. Sometimes these labs take a while to come back, so you might not be able to tell for sure if it's pneumonia or if it's something else. On the other hand, since pneumonia is easily treatable for the most part, just people have to take it easy, keep hydrated and stuff, it might not impact her travel schedule as much as we would worry about.
You know, we're looking at the detail coming from the comment and statement from Dr. Lisa Bardak, and she was saying that, and I'll read again from it. It says, Secretary Clinton has been experiencing a cough related to allergies, and Friday, during a follow-up evaluation, her prolonged cough was diagnosed with, she was diagnosed with pneumonia. So could have that cough been more than allergy potentially early on? How do you put together what we were seeing there in that statement?
I agree. I mean, I actually think it's more common for people to have a cough from pneumonia first, or an infection first, and then that, whether it's bacteria or viruses, sometimes that can also trigger an allergic reaction. So you might see somebody coughing for a prolonged period of time because of the allergies afterwards. But the two can go together. So it actually fits pretty well. I mean, if someone has pneumonia, there are a couple different things that can make them lightheaded. So first of all, you burn a lot more fluids when you're sick if you're infected with something. So it's easy to just become dehydrated from that alone, especially if you have a fever. Second, if you have pneumonia, you might have lower oxygen levels, and even a slight difference in that amount of oxygen can also make you feel more lightheaded or like you might pass out. And then finally, if you're on antibiotics, you know, a lot of people might feel nauseated when they're on antibiotics. You might not have a good appetite either because you're sick or because you're on these antibiotics. And if it causes any GI symptoms, so for example, upset stomach or diarrhea, all of those factors can make you more likely to be dehydrated.
She was put on antibiotics. That's what Dr. Lisa Bardak said in her statement. What sorts of antibiotics are we talking about? Would they have to be extremely strong, or it can be a whole sort of different types that you would prescribe here?
There's a whole assortment. So usually if someone comes in and you see things on their lab tests, the ones that come back sooner, so for example, your white blood cell count, which is a measure of you fighting infection, if that's raised, you know, we assume that it's a community-acquired pneumonia, so your general pneumonia. And you get started on oral antibiotics, not necessarily anything super-powered, but the things that are most effective. So she probably was started on that, if that's the case. But on
Go ahead, please go.
Oh, I was just going to add, but then sometimes you'll get tests back later where they can actually find out which bacteria it was, perhaps from the sputum, and how sensitive it is to different antibiotics. So you might tailor your regimen based on that.
Based on this, Dr. Devi, and we see Secretary Clinton, and she was out this morning in a very warm environment. Would it have been suggested that she stay away from that, given that the symptoms involved from pneumonia, at least when you go to the textbook, say that you get a fever, you know, a cough, and as you were discussing all these other symptoms, should she have been down at 9/11?
Well, it's a mixed bag, you know. So generally, we tell patients to stay home, take it easy, rest, stay hydrated, right? But it is 9/11, and perhaps she wanted to be there to show her support and not miss that event. Now, of course, you have to be careful, too, because if you're infectious, you might get other people infected as well. But presumably, if she was on antibiotics, they were okay.
Dr. Devi, stand by. I want to ask you about walking pneumonia shortly, but I want to go to Rehema Ellis. NBC News' Rehema Ellis down at Ground Zero. She was there earlier today. And Rehema, this is a place that you know well. You've reported on these anniversaries. This anniversary, this 15th anniversary, was a warm one, certainly. What were the conditions like that you experienced and felt when you were there?
Well, let me just tell you that, according to the National Weather Service, the overnight temperature here was 81 degrees. that was in the middle of the night and there was no sunshine. Now, by the time you get here in the morning, we're starting at 81, and it was extremely humid. So for someone to be in those kind of conditions and to be standing probably for more than an hour and a half as I was standing, and they were not drinking. They did not have the opportunity to get water or any other kind of libations. It can be taxing. I know I even felt that the humidity was feeling very heavy on me. So those were the kind of conditions that existed here. And overnight, again, we started with a temperature that was 81 degrees, even before the sun came up.
Rehema, if you can, because we're looking at the video from earlier with Secretary Clinton as she was speaking with various individuals. What part of the Ground Zero Memorial was she at? Was it in a recessed area? You know, there's some lower areas or some higher areas. Describe, if you can, because this video is very much zoomed in.
I can't tell you exactly because I wasn't there, and so I was seeing the image pretty much that you were seeing. But in the area where the ceremony takes place, it's where all the dignitaries stand, and it gives them a very good opportunity to mingle with some of the families and also to see the activities that are taking place on stage. So what's happening, again, it's very crowded. She was wearing dark clothes, as was appropriate for the day, and it was very humid. So again, the conditions, high humidity, heat that began at 81 degrees overnight, and that, again, that was the overnight temperature, and not having probably an opportunity to take in drinks or cool water, and there was no cool breeze then, like there is a cool breeze now. What we had then was a very warm and humid air that was hovering over all of us at that time. Richard?
As the pictures are showing here, Rehema, behind you, we can see certainly a breeze moving, and we're looking at the video earlier. There was a tree in front, and the leaves not moving. So what the different times, the different hours of the day will bring to that location. NBC's Rehema Ellis, thank you so much. Donald Trump was also at Ground Zero today, as we were talking about where Secretary Clinton was, and they were both marking, of course, the 9/11 anniversary. Hallie Jackson is covering the Trump campaign. And Hallie, on this day, it seems that the Trump campaign is very much focusing on that commemoration and really not reacting to the headlines that we're discussing this hour.
No, any of the headlines, really, Richard. Not only Clinton's health scare, but in addition, Trump not coming out and publicly speaking about that line that she delivered at that fundraiser Friday night about half his supporters being that, quote, basket of deplorables. In fact, NBC News was there when Donald Trump visited a firehouse in Manhattan. He headed over to Rescue One, which is one of the hardest hit companies in New York after 9/11. He visited with New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, and one of our embeds, somebody who follows the Trump campaign, asked him about Clinton. I want to play you that, and I want you to see how he, quote unquote, responds, or more like doesn't respond. Listen.
Mr. Trump, a quick question about Hillary Clinton's health incident this morning. Her health incident this morning.
So there's Trump saying he doesn't know anything about it. He moves on. He walks on. He decides not to stop and talk to the press. A calculation for him that on this day, as he was leaving this firehouse after, as you saw that video, being at the 9/11 ceremony at Ground Zero, deciding today was not about politics and avoiding the topic altogether. We have reached out to the campaign, which has not responded to that end either.